while everyone's following, why don't we start it off? Shout out to Yatarth and No Idea. Like, I had no idea that was how powerful your presentation could be and how hot it made this room. So anyone that remained, shout out to everyone that remained. But really one theme from that's going to be resonating through the conversation with our four experts here today is around, technology is not everything, right? At the end of the day, to really execute on this, you really need trust. You need a shared business context, and you really good governance to kind of make it repeatable. And so today's panel, with these four experts here, we're going to be covering balancing descriptive reporting with predictive and agentic insights. And joining us today are these four leaders from enterprise analytics, business intelligence, consumer analytics, and workforce analytics. Super excited for having these four up here with me. First up, we have Senior Director, Strategy, Innovation, and Enterprise Analytics at LCBO, Richard Wing. Then we have President and Founder in Environics Analytics, Jan Kessel. And then we have Senior Manager, Workforce Analytics and Strategic Planning from Zenovis, Juan Carlos Cabanillas. And then we have Business Intelligence Manager, Great Western Brewing Company, Ross Godzilla. So just give him a round of applause first. Awesome. So our discussion today will focus on following a simple journey. I tried to curate it as much as possible. We'll open up for questions as well afterwards. But what I'm hoping we'll get through is understanding where are organizations today across all the different industries. When are they ready for that next step? What signals matter? How do we build that trust? And how do we drive action? But ultimately, at the end of the day, who owns the outcome? So I'm very curious to learn from these experts here. So this first question, kind of a softball, but also a curveball potentially, depends on how you guys will answer this. It's for everyone. What percentage of business decisions today are and should still be driven primarily by descriptive analytics versus predictive or AI-driven recommendations? And Ross, maybe I'll start with you.
Yeah. At the heart of the question, it's not really about a percentage number. It's about what your stakeholders are really looking for. At my organization, our executives, most of them wouldn't be able to tell you the difference between descriptive or predictive or prescriptive analytics. They just want to make a decision. And finding the right data for the right purpose and at the right time to be able to help them make that decision is really the most important thing for business leaders today.
JC?
Yeah, I was actually going to say 17.5% as a joke. But I think it's difficult to put a percentage on this. Reality is that there's always going to be a need for descriptive analytics, prescriptive analytics, and most important for agentic AI. So there's always a need for that. I think it all depends on data or dashboards or analytics for frontline leaders, mid-level leaders, senior-level leaders.
Awesome. And Jen?
So our business works with about 1,000 companies across Canada, from mom-and-pop shops to the very largest financial institutions and consumer marketing brands. And we work across mostly consumer marketing and some amount of B2B marketing. So for me, the good news is that people are really interested in insights and analytics that help them go and do something. To me, in the past 6 months, I don't know what the numbers are, but a little bit more of an optimist, maybe from 20 to 50% of people, they want insights and they want to do analytics, but they mostly want to be sure that they can get an outcome that can change their business results, particularly because of competitiveness, because of geopolitical, because of the economy. It's not just the data world that's forcing businesses, it's the outside world that's forcing business to have something that I can go and do something. So to me, that's prescriptive. Across the whole gamut, everybody's at all different places. If you saw the last speaker, I thought it was a great breakdown, but everybody's everywhere.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. I'd say that within the organization, we're still maturing as a very data-rich organization at the LCBO. Our reporting maturity is very high, and but we are still adhering. I think the analytics teams within the organization are still adhering to a lot of kind of call it legacy ways of working, right? This is the way we've done it. This is the data that we trust. This is how we're going to do it, and this is how we're going to move forward. And so now that there are these opportunities through prescriptive, agentic AI models that are available, it's also up to the organization to balance how are we using our data governance foundations to really build on what is a responsible use of data and building towards that kind of single source of truth so that the data teams can be confident in what they're using, as well as the executives that are taking in that data and as well as the decisions and insights of how can we be sure that that data is actually valid and true. And so that all starts with a solid data governance foundation.
Amazing, amazing. And you can hear from all four, like from varying different industries, different kind of experiences. It's, the answer was always going to be depends. I was waiting for 4 depends, but pretty much got a lot of that. But I think it goes back to working with your stakeholders and really trusting that foundation. So maybe sticking with you, Richard, and maybe fun fact, Richard and I are old university classmates, so I'm super excited for him to be here. We chat at lunch at times about this stuff, so really excited for him to be here. But maybe sticking with you to start.
Sure.
You work at the intersection of strategy, innovation, and analytics. What signals tell you when your organization is sort of ready to take that next step? And tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. No, that's a great question. Thanks, Alex. We're constantly looking both externally and internally, right? And so from an external standpoint, LCBO, I'm sure most people in the room know, it's a very a legacy retail organization, been around for almost 100 years. And so when we think about legacy retail models, it's very much based off of looking at backwards data of what happened in the past, very rigid, call it inventory systems that determine what to be pushing into the stores, as well as when we think about even marketing, how we messaged to people in the past was very much mass messaging sent to everyone and hopes that there may be a couple of hits coming in. But now the consumers are changing, whereby it's a much more technology-enabled marketplace. Competitors or industry analogs within the Canadian marketplace are getting much more sophisticated in their digital and technology capabilities. And we have to respond from where our consumers want us to be. And from an internal standpoint, our consumer insights teams, the signals there are spent of determining, still spent a lot of time on focusing on what happened in the past versus what needs to happen next. And we're also facing the fact that the business now is asking questions that a lot of insights teams can't answer either within a reasonable amount of time or that requires scale and precision. And so all these decisions, whether it is, did I touch something? All these are factoring into why the LCBO needs to change. And in fact, we are undergoing a significant digital transformation now whereby we're creating that single source of truth for the organization, revamping our digital platforms to ensure that we are evolving with our consumer and our consumer needs.
Awesome. Any other thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, I was going to add, companies hear from employees in different ways. Over the last years, there have been an explosion of different tools, applications. I remember about 5 years ago, we built a very interesting platform, like a data science practice, and we're thinking, where are the use cases? 5 years later, your use cases are just coming. It's about enabling the employees, enabling your workforce to explore and to experiment. There's a big culture change and a change management component there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's that willingness to experiment that really drives a lot of that as well. For the ones in the back, there's actually some seats here if you want to come down. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Awesome. And maybe, Jen, turning it over to you, like with your experience with Environics, founding Environics, and your wealth of experience in sort of the evolution of our industry, I'm really curious, how should leaders think about combining historical data, real-time data, and external market data to better anticipate future outcomes? But also on the other side of it, what signals or data sources do you believe is underutilized today?
Well, on the first point, I think what we're trying to do, regardless of what kind of data we use, is we're trying to simulate reality, and we're doing the best we can to use the data sources that exist. What we're doing now is using traditional surveys to get actual studies, but then we're also using them to project other kinds of behavior. We're using, census data and administrative data from governments like tax filer data in order to build models so that we can not only have the actual data, which would be descriptive, but use data to actually create new variables. And that involves making assumptions, making hypotheses, assessing risks, adding value, like the last speaker talked to. So there's a lot of great data out there, and sometimes I listen to people talk about, well, is third-party data better than first-party data? Of course, you should use it all. You should use your market research data. You should use your first-party data. You should use third-party data. And you should use signal data, because what you're looking to do is make your best guess of whether you're talking about digital twins or some other kinds of models. You're trying to simulate the way things are now and understand that old adage, if everything holds equal, we can predict the future. Nothing is ever held equal. Well, now we have much more of an opportunity to take advantage of what we think might change. So for us, for those who know us, we've kind of provided benchmark and third-party data on demographics and lifestyle and behavior. What we've done is make sure that can now be better integrated with our customers' own data. And then we've started to look at what we called, big data 10 years ago, signal data from phones, data from the Internet of Things, and being able to harness that data with context to be able to use different kinds of data together. So I think what I'm most excited about is how the technology enables us to blend data to make sure the estimates are high quality, and also to bring governance right into the technology with privacy-enhancing technologies to make sure that when we combine all different kinds of data, if it came from devices or if it came from consumers, we've told them what we were going to do with it. We've followed rules of anonymization and de-identification. I believe that in Canada we have a strong tradition of using data in safe and effective ways that the public can be, maybe some people are concerned, but if we use data effectively, we can help businesses work better, but we can also help people's lives better. So the exciting thing is kind of that mashup of all different kinds of data and the technology enabling us to do things quickly and produce results and test whether or not it's working and make sure that the data is high quality and make sure that the data is safe to keep our brands safe.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it ties nicely to the previous presentation around like, hey, don't wait for perfect data. You have some data, start using it, right? And start experimenting and start playing around with that. Maybe, JC, I'll pass it to you in the next one. For those who don't know, JC has a wide experience in like working in ML labs and things like that as well. So this one was tailor-made for you in terms of like, how do you build trust in predictive insights before the outcome is actually known? Like, how do you have those conversations with your stakeholders?
That's a very, very good question. Like, trust has to be built not only at the operators in the field, but also with the analysts in the office, right? When you look at an AI model, a machine learning model, a data science model, it actually has to work, right? One of the big challenges with data science experiments is like you start from the data up, you start from a hypothesis. So you really don't know if it's going to work or not. And there's a lot of back and forward, change management, education, upskilling that needs to happen to find your sponsors, your champions, your influencers in the organization that are going to help you to move that forward. One thing to add, I just wanted to mention a quick comment. You were talking about historical data, signal data, current data, and external. For me, historical data helps you to understand the past. Signal current data helps you to understand what's going on right now, like a pulse check. And external data helps you to put things in context. Now, do you need all of that? Yes and no. It will depend on the question or the hypothesis.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I can build on that, trust is really the currency of completing data projects in an office. Why is Jan in accounting still using the Excel sheet someone built her in 2007? Because it's working and it's reliable and she trusts it. That's really at the heart of what we need to do is understand what are the real problems that our stakeholders need solved and find the right data that they need to be able to change it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Ross, maybe sticking with you, given your background, Ross came from the business side before he went to analytics, so the dark side for all those who don't talk. Okay. But being sort of from your experience, organizations often talk about being data-driven, but really increasingly they're talking about being decision-driven. So I'm wondering, what changes when that goal shifts from producing insights to influencing decisions from your perspective?
Yeah. But yeah, before I answer the question, so really quick history on the company I work for, because most of you probably don't know what Great Western Brewing is. Great Western Brewing is one of the largest independent brewers in Canada, and we aspire to be the largest independent beverage company in Western Canada, founded in 1990 by 16 frontline workers who bought the brewery from Molson Coors. So we, at the heart of our business, are really resilient and scrappy. It's a David and Goliath story. We go to work every day to try and fight against these big giant companies, and we need to be able to make quick decisions. My stakeholders aren't concerned about what tech stack we have or what database system we're using. They want to know, should we change our price tomorrow? Should we add a territory manager to North Edmonton? Should we expand this new SKU into BC? And meeting our stakeholders where they are with the data that we have to be able to make the best decision possible is really how we can drive the business forward into the future.
Yeah, absolutely. And anyone want to build off of that?
And just to add to that, I think when we talk about being data-driven, it's all about organizations in the past having a high number of dashboards or information that they can generate in order to track the metrics in their organization. But when we talk about decision-driven, and I really liked the Yatharth in the previous panel before that spoke about how are we shifting away from, okay, well, what's the business question? Here's the data, you go interpret it and make the decision, versus here's the recommendation and here's the action. And so being data-driven, in my own perspective, I see it being more as much more slow, slow pace to decision making, because it's still, call it institutional-led, because you have to follow the process, you have to go up the streams, versus embedding decision-making into your workflows so that you're increasing on the speed of decision-making, you're increasing efficiency using the various types of data, whether it be descriptive, descriptive or qualitative, quantitative. You're mixing it together into your existing decision-making workflow to make the lives easier of the executives that need to make that call as to should they expand into Ontario or not with their newest RTD SKU.
Rich is going to help us with that.
I just want to add in one thing. In talking to a large number of executives, especially right now with the competitive pressures, trade, all those things we don't want to talk about, what I'm hearing is executives don't even look at their dashboards anymore. They pile up, they're sitting there in their inbox. And so if we have the opportunity to have methodologies and technologies that we as data people trust that actually prescribe an action and ways of measuring whether or not it works, so that the executives don't have to review those beautiful dashboards that we created 10 years ago, that actually says, they trust them, they know the data are there. But if we can actually have the agents say, we noticed this, we ought to go do this, that makes people's lives so much easier in a time when organizations are cutting staff, they have to do more with less. They really need help in knowing what to go and do. There's no room for data paralysis anymore.
Yeah, actually, maybe piggybacking off of that for the next question, if there was an AI-generated recommendation or predictive recommendation that influences a business decision, and the outcome is actually wrong, who have you seen would stand up and say, hey, it's ultimately for them to own? Maybe Richard?
Sure. I think this is where your data governance foundation is critical for your organization, because as much as your team can invest into creating the top of the line data lake with the various semantic layers to shape your data, it is really how the teams within your organization are using that data, as well as what are the accountability controls that shape it really shape that towards that answer. And so I would say that data governance is not a one-size-fit-all, but rather it should be proportional to the level of control. So, for example, things that are decisions that are low risk within the organization, something like that, I would see as a reasonable opportunity for automation or the usage of AI. But as you start to increase on the size of risk within the organization, so something like a medium risk, you still need to involve humans in the loop to validate and justify the recommendation that's put forward. And those that are considered high risk or those that are considered strategic in nature, I would say fully human-owned, or executive-owned, but the opportunity to leverage, prescriptive or AI as advisory to inform that conversation. And so, at the account of it all, it's not about who is responsible, but what are the accountability controls that you're setting up in the organization so that you can really start having the right level of conversations at the right place. And organizations that can do that, teams that are able to set those controls, right on the face, will be ahead when they start to adopt AI more into their daily functions.
Yeah, awesome. And anyone want to follow that?
Yeah, I wanted to echo what Rachel was saying. Like from operational reporting, it makes sense to add more agentic or AI capability. If it's more strategic, senior level decision, you need the human to always check on numbers. You're not going to leave an M&A or an acquisition just to a recommendation of an AI, right? It's going to be a co-pilot. The human will always have to be the pilot. And you mentioned a bad word, data governance. Another bad word will be data quality.
Yes.
Yes.
Awesome. Sorry, I don't know if anyone else is heating up, but I'm heating up here. It's okay. All right. So I know we were very practical. Everyone that's here has been very practical about like things, but I want us to see something from a positive lens potentially. Maybe for the final question here before we look out to the crowd. Looking ahead over the next 3 to 5 years, what's one development in predictive analytics or AI-assisted decision making that genuinely excites you the most? And Jen, maybe I'll start with you.
Well, I think that all the tools and data and the governance structures allow us to actually measure what's working and what's not working. And it's sort of apropos of the previous question, it's not as if the totally human conducted and human-led research and analytics and dashboards never led to a bad decision. So it's testing and learning and actually measuring whether what you did worked is the most exciting thing for me. And we have control over how we build those agents, about how we validate them, about how we deploy them. I'd be a little bit reluctant to just think, well, at this level, we need human intervention or human oversight. I think every decision that we make in business, there's a whole lot of art and science. There's a whole lot of gut feel. The agents and the agentic workflows and the AI are just going to let us get to it faster. But you know what? We are going to make mistakes. We just have to learn from them.
Yeah, absolutely. And JC?
Yeah, for me, what excites me are two things. One is the development of tools. In the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of development. Over the next 7 years, we want to see more. So that's really cool and excited. In the past, what it used to take us, I remember for some AI use cases, a good 18 months and a SWAT team of 20 people. Now we can do it in months with less people. So that's very exciting. And the other is the people. I see more appetite in the workforce, in different levels of the organizations, different levels of seniority. There's an appetite to do more. So that is really, really exciting.
Yeah.
I think the shift of spending a lot of time for a lot of people on menial tasks and being able to focus on high value, high impact objectives within your organization is very exciting. The productivity gains have been substantial in my organization. We have more projects than we can possibly complete. We're a small company. This leverages our ability as a small data team to be able to do a lot more, make a much bigger impact in our organization as we look to expand in the industry.
Richard?
For me, it's exciting to see how the capabilities of our insights teams continue to evolve. Because as I think the panel has stated over the past 30 minutes or so, it's not like, the insights that we generate can all be automated with a click of a button. It's really how we're able to tell that story. It's now, shifting away from, setting up these data tables, right, and spending half the day doing that, to now more focused on, are we sure we're asking the right questions? Are we sure that the hypothesis that we're developing is the one that really is addressing the business question at heart? It's the opportunity for the insights team to really work with the business teams to determine what are the root causes behind what they're seeing in market, and how do you translate what you're seeing from an insight perspective to business action and business decision making. And so it is more about what I'm excited about is changing our organization from that data-driven to decision-driven organization through our insights teams.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a lot of common themes kind of resonating from there. Maybe one I'll sneak in from my perspective. I think that 80-20 rule that we all believe in analytics, 80% of it is a lot of the data wrangling, the cleaning and whatnot, and 20% is the cool stuff. I think if we're accelerating the 80%, I'm excited for spending more time on that 20%, really getting people to the art of the possible and opening their eyes to what is possible. And also from a culture and team perspective, you're really allowing them to focus on that 20% where they can to flex that creativity. And I had a conversation outside with some other folks that were saying, executives want the what. They don't really care about the how. So oftentimes we all stress about the how because we know the how changes the what. So if we're thinking about accelerating that 80%, really accelerating the how so we can worry less about that and more focused on the what and bridge that gap with our business partners as well. And I guess with that, I'll open up to the floor for questions. Yep.
So my name is Munir. I'm from CW Canada. So I was just thinking, we were in the data to insight era, and then we moved to insight to decision era. So the traditional data governance should have now decision governance, because the decision matrix should be considered. For example, he is having an advantage because he has been in the business, has the subject matter expertise. So when he's looking at data, his decision matrix design will be different from someone who has no experience in business. So the concept of data governance may be misleading. Am I right thinking that? It should be more like decision governance?
I think one can't happen without the other, right? And so you do need that strong data foundation to determine how does your data flow throughout the organization from ingestion to disposal. But at the same time, as we start to see more tools that your teams can start using, it is about creating those guardrails so that you're really determining, how can I effectively make the right decisions so that my data, my internal company data is used in the right way? And then towards the question that I had answered earlier, it's about, okay, at what point are we comfortable with, whether it's the ML ops or some of the more automated processes, what are the decisions that we're okay with letting go and letting them be more automated versus the ones that we do want humans involved in the decision making, or ones that we only want to be AI as an input rather than actual decision set. So it is I would say it's more of an evolution as you get your data set up right. It's now how are the people, which is, I would say, arguably the more important component, change, etc. How are we changing the people's behaviors to fit that, the use of data?
I think the other thing that's really important about governance is we are seeing what governance is and who's responsible for it shifting in this time period as well. So for me, governance is not just an IT or a compliance or a legal issue. Governance in what we do with data, with AI, with decision making is about protecting our brands and making sure our reputation is everything. It's security, it's all those things. And so for me, proper governance around what you do with data, what technology you use, what should you do, what could you do, how does it really impact your employees and your customer base, has to be a C-suite strategic decision. And we're seeing governance silos still in chief data officers, in the IT department, in the legal department, and the more those of us who are actually involved in the analytics and the insights for decision making can be sure that it's a corporate strategy that serves the business and serves the brand. I think it's really important because standards are important, and enforcement and auditing and compliance is really important to how consumers and business partners see your company. So I think governance has to evolve as the whole technology evolves.
And I think with that, we really want to thank the panelists here today and also the first half hour. I want to thank everyone for sticking with us for this full hour with the heat. And yeah,